out one lookout. Look at that polar bear scratching himself with a chunk of ice. There's nervous laughter. At 3:30 a.m., there's nothing else for it. Ship's speed is reduced by half to slow ahead as the going gets tougher. Now, on the horizon, green flares have been spotted at random intervals, but there's no sight of Titanic's masthead or her navigation lights. Carpathia is right on top of Titanic's given position. She should be visible. Then, 4 a.m., a solid green flare is spotted low on the horizon. And as the sky slowly begins to light in the early morning, Carpathia inches towards it. The truth is revealed. Green lights, flares, lit by survivors in tiny wooden lifeboats. Carpathia has arrived at the scene, but Titanic is nowhere in sight because she is over 2 miles beneath their feet. His port side, where the Carpathia's bulk would provide shelter from the breeze. Rescuing this first lone boat is itself no easy task. Rostron intended to take its occupants on board from his port side, where the Carpathia's bulk would provide shelter from the breeze and the choppy seas, but at the last minute, an iceberg loomed out of the murky light. Carpathia was still moving slowly ahead, with her engines stopped, carried by her momentum. Rostron puts the helm hard over to starboard and swings his ship around. The boat arrives on Carpathia's starboard side. Disaster is narrowly inverted. Go over the side with 2 quartermasters, he says, and board her as she comes alongside. Fend her off so that she doesn't bump. Be careful, she doesn't capsize. The wooden boat is only 25 feet long, and to curious onlookers aboard the ocean liner, it must look like a toy drifting all alone on the vast Atlantic Ocean. It was one of Titanic's emergency cutters, swung out at all times in the event of a man overboard. Huddled on the boat's thwarts are about 18 people, numbed by cold and feeling seasick. On the lifeboat's bow was a metal nameplate reading Titanic. Its occupants, having spent that whole dark, moonless night alone in the middle of the ocean, stare up in bewilderment at the black steel hull and tall red funnel of a Cunard steamship. One passenger in the boat, a woman, cries out hysterically, "Titanic has gone down," with everyone on board. Carpathia's passengers stare wide-eyed at the tiny little lifeboats as they begin to appear like specks on the murky, early morning horizon. They come slowly closer onto the side of the steamship, some barely occupied, others overloaded deep to their waterline. Preparations made by Carpathia's crew proved remarkably well thought out. The weak and the injured are hoisted aboard. They're comforted by crew and stewards who rush blankets over their shivering bodies and hand them the hot cups of coffee and soup. Oars go into the gangways, covered in flakes of ice. One man next to a Carpathia's crew comes face to face with rescuer Captain Rostron. "Where is the Titanic?" Captain asks. "Gone," says the officer. "It's Titanic's fault," Joseph Boxer. "She went down at about 2:30. The breaking voice betrays his deep distress. Bridge is stunned into silence. After many people left on board when she sank. Boxall's voice quivers with emotion. "Hundreds and hundreds," he goes. "Perhaps thousands, perhaps more." Rostron thanks him and quietly guides him below to get warmed by coffee. Carpathia's decks and in her saloons, passengers collapse, exhausted and emotionally overcome by horror or even sheer relief. Lewis Ogden, the first-class passenger from Carpathia, tries to hand coffee to a pair of women sitting quietly in the corner. "Go away," one barks. "We've just seen our husbands drown." Rescue work goes on with a deathly quiet, interrupted only by the quiet sobs of separated children, husbands, wives, mothers, and fathers. Carpathia's house flag is lowered to front of the wireless shack. Harold Cotton comes face to face with an unexpected presence. His friend, one of Titanic's boys, Harold Fry. His colleague,
You mean that
O'Brien was to insist he help by bringing the trap. At 8:30 a.m., it was 8 hours since Carpathia felt Titanic's distress calls. Find the boat was down. Its occupants had survivors had been watching keenly for their missing friends or loved ones. Now, finality hits home. This is the last fight. Friends or loved ones are not aboard, and they're not likely to have made it. Rostron had at first expected to find Titanic still afloat. He was ready to bring 2,200 people aboard his ship. Instead, was found a bedraggled group of lifeboats, and not 2,200 souls, but 705 cold and weary people that formed Carpathia's decks. He now has a decision to make. Does he remain to trawl for bodies in the water, or should he make for the nearest landfall, Halifax? Could rendezvous should be much better suited to caring for the masses of humanity now crowding his ship. The realization is that the side of Titanic's near-identical sister ship the shattered survivors would be to remain on site and collect hundreds of bodies from safely navigated full speed through a pitch black night surrounded on all sides by forest to arrive in time to rescue the entire complement of Titanic survivors. And now there can be no celebration, only the quiet, somber voice of America. 705 people aboard had begun 5 days ago. Excitement, pleasure. Carpathia steams slowly away from the side, icebergs glistening all around her in the early morning sun. It's April 15th, 1912. Carpathia's rescue mission has ended. Smoky haze left floating on the water's surface. The inky black ocean erupted, splashing and clamoring. The screams of those fighting for their lives echoed in all directions. Titanic's second officer Charles Lightoller recalled that it was an utter nightmare of both sight and sound. For the following hour, the noise grew more and more faint, almost silenced, and another life taken by the cold. The eerie quiet washed over the lifeboats was only occasionally broken by the cries of a widow or a child realizing they had lost a parent. The night stretched on like this, no apparent end in sight. Still growing fast, lights of spot on the horizon. Carpathia had arrived, having made full steam through the night to reach Titanic's last known position. One by one, the lifeboats and the survivors they held hauled aboard with various passengers. Medicine, blankets, clothes, and a place to sleep. Most importantly, they had the promise of them. Onto Carpathia stepped Mr. J. Bruce Ismay, chairman of the White Star Line. He assumed control of the company after his father's death, committed to continuing his lasting legacy. Titanic and her sister ships were Ismay's dream, a passion project he had overseen for 3 years. As a custom, he always traveled on his ship's first crossings, and there had come the horror of the sinking. He assisted loading lifeboats and getting passengers away, for he himself stepped into a boat in the area of the deck he was working in had become unusually empty as passengers tried to escape elsewhere. He turned his back as the ship took a dying plunge. They almost met the sail.